Today, we're diving into a fascinating story of contrasts coming out of India. It's a story where incredible national pride and some pretty severe economic pressure were happening at the exact same time, on the exact same day. So let's get into it. So the day was January 26th, 2026. India was celebrating its 77th Republic Day, a huge deal. But what the world saw wasn't just one celebration. It was a nation with, you could say, a split personality, pulling in two totally opposite directions. On one hand, you had this spectacular show of pure strength. We're talking military parades, broadcasting a message of a super confident, self-reliant nation. And then, on the other hand, a really clear sign of strain, with the financial markets flashing some serious red flags about the economy. And that brings us to the big question, right? How can a country look so powerful and be facing such intense economic headwinds all at once? To figure that out, we've got to break down both sides of the story. Okay, let's start with that show of strength. The whole vibe of the parade was this newfound strategic confidence, and it was all built on the back of a very recent, very decisive military victory. The parade was really all about Operation Sindoor. Now, this wasn't just a military op, it was a huge psychological win. This super fast, 23-minute strike back in 2025 completely changed how the world, and honestly how India itself, saw its own military power. And boy, was that confidence on full display. The parade wasn't just about showing off cool hardware, it was about showing off Indian-made hardware. We saw stuff like the BrahMos missiles, the Suryastra rocket launcher, the Arjun tank, and they even rolled out a new hypersonic glide missile. The message couldn't have been clearer. India can build its own top-tier defense. And this new military muscle had a very real impact on the economy. After Operation Sindoor, investors just poured money into domestic defense companies. We're talking shipbuilders like Mazagon Dock and drone makers like IdeaForge. Their stocks just soared. People started calling it the Sindoor effect, and it created a whole new set of stars on the stock market. But while all those tanks were rolling down the parade route, a completely different story was playing out in the financial world. And this was the big economic reality check. This one number pretty much says it all, 92. The Indian rupee hit an all-time low against the US dollar. Now, for a country that has to import a lot of its energy and electronics, a weak currency like that puts a massive squeeze on the whole economy. And a big reason why is this. Foreign investors were pulling out. A staggering $18 billion was withdrawn from Indian stocks in the last fiscal year. It's a classic sign of global investors getting nervous and moving their money to what they see as safer bets. So what's causing all this? Well, it's basically a perfect storm. You've got that global uncertainty, a trade deal with the US that's gone nowhere, a growing trade deficit, and this is a big one, some really aggressive tariffs, up to 50%, that the US slapped on certain Indian goods. It's a tough environment to say the least. So, faced with all these challenges, India made a huge strategic move. And they did it right there on Republic Day, with two very important guests watching the parade, the heads of the European Commission and the European Council. India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal didn't pull any punches. He called the new free trade agreement with the European Union the mother of all deals. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about how massive and important this thing is. And to really get just how big of an achievement this was, you have to realize this wasn't some quick negotiation. This deal was almost 2 decades in the making. It was a marathon of diplomacy that finally crossed the finish line. So what's actually in this deal? Well, for India's textile industry, which employs millions of people, it means their goods can now enter the EU market with 0 tariffs. That's huge. In return, India is lowering its super high taxes on things like European cars, wine, and cheese. It's a classic give and take meant to fire up both economies. And I think this quote from the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen really gets to the heart of it. This deal is about more than just money and trade. It's about building a strong, strategic partnership in a world that feels more and more unstable. So with this historic trade deal in the bag, all eyes immediately shifted to the government's next big move in this high-stakes balancing act, the upcoming union budget. And get this, in a totally unprecedented move, the budget was scheduled to be presented on a Sunday. To really hammer home how important this was, the stock markets were even going to open for a special trading session. That just shows you the urgency of the situation. So what's everyone hoping for from this budget? Well, the wish list is long. The general public wants tax cuts. The military is expecting a big budget increase after Operation Sindoor. Exporters desperately need help to deal with those U.S. tariffs. And all this has to happen while India keeps investing in its digital future. It's a tough juggling act for sure. And that really leaves us with the billion-dollar question, doesn't it? India has flexed its military muscles and sealed a massive trade deal. But will that, plus a carefully crafted budget, actually be enough to navigate this global economic storm? The answer to that is going to shape India's future for years to come. Hey, if you found this breakdown helpful, do us a favor and hit those like, share, and subscribe buttons. It really helps us bring you more deep dives like this one. So what do you think? What's next for the Indian economy? We'd love to hear your take, so drop a comment below. Thanks for watching.